Hi, this is Nancy with Quilting with Nancy. Thank you for coming back to watch the continuing saga of the Winter Blues quilt. So most of it is pasted behind me. Now this is the queen size version. And if you didn't notice, if you didn't review the first video that I did, that was showing you the supplies that you need in different colorways. So if you haven't seen that one, maybe jump back and kind of skim through it and see about the different colorways that you can play with in the smaller version. We're going to do a little bit of both of that throughout the entire project. So for this particular part, we are going to start the foundation paper piecing, and we're going to start it with looking at the design, how we want to color it, and then how to cut your fabric. I know that seems really silly, but I just like to make sure that my students are cutting in the proper technique, and then we'll jump right into doing some foundation paper piecing. So this is what you get in the book. Is each one of the blocks, there are 6 blocks, are a blank copy. So then you can color it the way that you would like. Keeping in mind that there are 8 segments for each block, 4 corner parts, and then the center parts. Now, some of the blocks actually have an additional little triangle up here. So there might be anywhere from 2 to 3 segments that you need to make 4 copies of. So for my coloring, I actually went to electric quilt. So this is how I plan on coloring it. This is going to be the red, white, and blue variation. And I got to tell you where I really got this from. I've got this fabric that I don't even know how long I've had it. I thought I saw it. It's a Clothworks fabric, and I don't know how well you can see it, but it says "United We Stand," and in the red and the white. And I'm actually doing this recording in the midst of watching the Olympics, so I kind of got all patriotic on myself. So red, white, and blue, lots of different colors, countries with the red, white, and blue. And this one, I added a yellow accent to it, and I changed it from the original. So you can totally do that as long as you keep track of what you're doing on your blank sheet and then coordinate it with the different segments. Because, this is what the quilt's going to look like. So this is the smaller version of my new red, white, and blue one. This is what the templates look like. So you will get one template, and on it, it'll say make 4 copies. Now, I actually colored mine in because I have electric quilt, but you're going to get it, and it's going to look a little bit more like that. So this is for block 1, and you need to print 4 copies of this entire sheet because you'll need 4 corners and 4 centers. On this template, it will also tell you what fabric, so the fabric for the winter blues with the blue and silver colors are done with an A, B, and you can see the different ones. And you might change up your colors like I am doing with the patriotic one. But most importantly, this is telling you the size to cut that fabric for piecing this with the add an 1/8 ruler. So each piece is going to have it. Now you might look at it and go, all right, well, 2A and 3A are actually the same. Well, that's cool. There's certain ones around here, but like here, this 8 piece is done in fabric C. This 8 piece is done in fabric B. So that is how you would get this little fun octagon in the middle. So just pay attention to the numbers and the letters on the template. So you're going to get the original, and you're going to make your photocopies onto the Carol Doak Foundation paper. So that's that lighter weight one. All right. So for my next step, I need to cut my 7Ds. I cut everything already. Now it's time for me to cut my 7D. And you're looking at it, let's see, there. I have it written so you're cutting the large section first and then the smaller section. I find that to be more efficient when I'm cutting my fabric. So let's do that one right now. We're going to cut, here's the additional, just to show you, here's the other blocks, the coloring for the other blocks that I'm going to make. And there's the center one, and I think it looks really cool, and I can't wait to see it be finished. Okay, so I'm going to cut a 4-inch strip. So I'm a little bit going off the top with this fabric, but I want you to fold your fabric in quarters so that it's only approximately 11 inches. This one's a little longer because it's a bigger fabric to begin with. But I'm going to line up the horizontal, oops, I got to scooch that up, but you can't see it. The horizontal line on my ruler with the fold of my fabric so that I can square off and straighten up this end. With a nice sharp blade I just put in my little, this is the little Omni grid I was talking to you about, and where it's, you put it on soft or hard, but the blade is always shut because, oops, when you press it, it goes down. It's kind of like that saber saw blade in my dad's workshop. But, you know, I don't know if everybody had a workshop like my dad did. All right, now I'm going to cut a 4-inch strip. Take this and push it to the side, keeping track of all of your little scraps. You're going to have a lot of scraps, and you're going to want to keep everything until you're completely done with the project to make sure that you've, not made any mistakes, like as if we ever make mistakes, right? Now I've turned it and I've opened it up, so I'm having it on 2 pieces of fabric. So this would normally be your selvage edge that you're cutting off. Going to cut off my selvage edge. That's also squaring it up. Then turn it around. And again, this is only 2 layers thick. And for this, I need a 1.5 inch piece. And I actually need it for both the corner blocks and the center blocks. So I am going to cut 8 of them, 2 with each one. There's 4. This time I'm going to power cut. That means adding the segments together. If I start at 3, then go back to 2, it's just a little bit faster to cut that way. Now I'm going to take this leftover piece, and like I said, I'm going to keep everything together. Try to keep myself organized, which is not as easy as you may think it is. Oh, and before I did this, all of my fabrics have been spray sized. I stiffened them all up so they're really, really stiff, and that's going to make the foundation piecing much easier. And I've got a pen around here somewhere that I can't find, so we're going to use a pencil. These are my little Avery multi-use labels. I love these things for labeling different pieces of fabric. So on this, I'm going to write an 8 and an 8 because I'll have 1 stack for the corner segments and 1 stack for the other segments. And so here I have my 2 little Ziploc. I'm sorry, it's not 7, it's 8. I already have 8 done there. See, I didn't get unorganized because I actually had that written down. So on each piece, put the number that it's going to be. And so now I know I'm going to reverse order how I cut these. So I've got 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. This is 2 and 3 because they're the same. And then 1. And putting a pin with them or clipping them, but then take those and store them into the Ziploc bag. Now I'm going to leave them out because we're going to start working with them. And this is for the corner segments. Corner segments in this particular block are bigger. So I've got 8, 7. And because they're stiffened, they're really very sturdy. I like that they can just like tap all straight together. I don't know. It's little things in life that I think are cool. And then 2 and 3, again, are going to be the same. And then here's the big one for the 1, and that's a B piece. All right. So I've got my fabrics prepared. Spray size those. Now it's time to get the templates. So like I mentioned, these have been photocopied. Keep in mind when you're photocopying pieces, especially in something like this, that when you're making the copies, that your copier and or printer, so if you were to buy the electronic version of the book, then you could use the print it right off your computer. If you've got the printed copy of the book, then you're going to actually put it onto your copier. So printer or copier, wherever you can, you want to be sure that it is printing 100%. Normal default for copiers and printers, depending on how you're sending it, is going to make the piece a little bit smaller. And that can get confusing, and it can make your blocks not quite be the same correct size. So be sure that you've checked your printer and that it's printing at full size or 100%, right? Then everything should fit quite nicely. All right, so we're back to here. I've got my 4 copies because I'm going to make 1 block. I do recommend that you at least make 1 block Make sure everything works, and then make the additional blocks, because some of them, like number 6, you need to, depending on the size, you need to make quite a few of those. So I would recommend cutting the fabrics and making one complete block first. So what I'm doing now is I am trimming these so that they are 1/4 of an inch larger than the outside line. So this is the seam line. This is the cut edge. I am cutting the templates out. Now in this case, I can't, so I can do 1/8 of an inch up here, and then I'm going to go to 1/4 of an inch down there. So you don't want to have excess paper all around the edges. So here, I can make it again 1/4 of an inch larger than the cut line, which is the little outside line. I can come over here to this one. And you could, all of them are going to have the labels on them. You could put what color they are, whatever it takes to not get too confused, because the truth is you're going to get confused. Just do your best to not go off the rails and have to go upstairs early for a glass of wine. All right, couple more cuts. Oops, that was a wild cut. There, that's better. Oops. And last one. All right, now I have my templates all cut out. And we're going to do a little bit of a chain piecing, what I would call an assembly line piecing. Now, you don't have to do it this way. You can do one of the triangle segments at a time. That is totally up to you. I'm going to try and do it. It's a little harder because my machine is crammed in with the camera, but I'm going to try and do at least 4 at a time. So I'm going to choose to do let's do this one. I'm going to choose to do the smaller one, all 4 at the same time. When I'm on a roll and I'm feeling confident, I've done my test block, I know it all works, I will do an entire block all at the same time, sending through 8 pieces of paper. What I wouldn't do is all of the, like for the large one behind me, I think the block number 6, which is this one, there are 9 of those blocks. Block number 1, there's only 4. So depending on how many you're making, I wouldn't go so far as to make more than maybe 2 complete blocks at a time. If you feel confident and organized, go for it. It really does make the process go a little bit faster, but that is going to be up to you. All right, so now I'm going to pull out my little light board, daylight light board, which is just really nice. I don't use it when I'm just piecing, foundation piecing for myself, but it makes it really nice because you're able to see, well, maybe you'd be able to see, except that I used, okay, I misprinted at one point, and so then I used the other side, right? That just means that I'm not wasting any paper. So let me brighten this up a little bit. There. So you can kind of see through the paper. Now I'm going to be doing with this set. So I'm going to put this set over to the side. And it does change the look of the light from above. So just hang with me. All right. So this is the first piece. If we flip this around to the other side, this is the number 1 piece. So looking at it here, I want to take my number 1 piece and I want to position it over this. So this is when I use the little glue stick. This is Yoo-hoo glue stick. So anything that's going to be water soluble and not in an acid free is going to work just fine. So I'm going to take and just put a little piece of it all the way around. And then I'm going to position this to cover that entire spot. So if we flip this over, see here, it's not covering all the way to this end. So I need to do that again. Let me see. I'm going to put more glue on. Didn't want to hold because I moved it too fast. There we go. That's going to be good. All right. So that piece, which I was tried to be very generous when I was having you cut the sizes, is glued right there. So I'm going to do that to all 4 of them. Please excuse the back of the paper. I know that you guys appreciate that I'm not wasting the extra paper, right? I'm going to do it this way. However it fits, so that you're 1/4, 1/8 inch from the edge. Okay, there's 2. 3 and 4. Now, I only do this on the very first one. I'll show you another glue that I use when I'm doing assembly line, but I don't use this glue stick on all of them. It's so funny that I printed these with that other thing on the top and totally forgot that I was going to be showing you what I am working on the back side. So, there. All right. So now all of my number 1s are in place. Now I need to prepare to piece my number 2 and 3 here. So to do that, I'm going to say this is my number 2. Yeah, that would be my number 2. I'm going to take and trim the fabric to the 1/8 of an inch. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. This is the add an 1/8 plus. That means it has this little beveled edge here that helps with the folding. This is the original add an 1/8. It doesn't have that bevel. So if you have the original, then you want to use a piece of cardboard, which I didn't have out. Or up there. All right, so this is the piece of cardboard that comes with your ruler. So I'm going to first do it with just the regular add an 1/8, okay? Take your piece of cardboard, a piece of cardstock, whatever you have, and lay it on the next line that you want to sew. So I've positioned my number 1 fabric. I'm going to add my number 2. I'm going to put the cardboard on that line and fold it back. Then use the add an 1/8 when you're looking at it and you can read add an 1/8. That means that there's a little lip on the bottom. This little lip is an 1/8 of an inch from the edge. So when you put it next to the fold and trim it, you are in position to put your next piece. Now with this particular quilt, we can do 2 and 3 at the same time. So I'm going to come over here and trim that. Okay. And because we're working in real time, I'm going to do the other 3. So this time I'm going to use the beveled edge, the add an 1/8 with the plus. So what you do is you flip it around to the back side. So now the bevel is sweeping up, and then you flip it over to make your cut. Don't forget to flip over like I almost just did. You saw me almost forget it. So I start here, fold it on the line, and flip over the blades, the ruler. So it starts here, and then you flip it over to the other side. There's number 2. 3. And I also mentioned to save all of your scraps of fabric. That would even include this piece. So I would save this piece. There are some pieces that are very small, and you just kind of never know when that's going to come around. And if you can save a little fabric, I highly recommend it. So I might tell you to cut a piece, a small piece, but if you've got these little scraps, and they're the size and they will cover it, like you could take it and go, all right, would it cover this segment? No, it wouldn't cover the segment here. But there are some of the pieces and some of the blocks that are very small. So save those little pieces until the very end. You can even use them for, like if when you put the piece on, it doesn't fully cover it, you can just use another little piece to add the additional that you need to. So save them, all right? There. So now they're all trimmed. Oops, I just turned off my light. Actually, I think that's going to be okay without the light. Now I'm going to add the number 2. So these are 2 and 3. I can only add one of them at a time. I could do the cutting ahead, but I can't do all of the piecing ahead. Ooh, let's close my glue. All right. But this is the acorn glue. Let me see. I found there. So these are 2 tools that I did not put on the original supplies that you needed. Honestly, just because I forgot. Can't believe I did. But the first one is called Acorn Seam Align Glue. Now this one is not a must-have. This is a really good product that can make assembly line piecing really easy, and I'll explain why as we go. The second one is the Clover mini iron, and I can think of 1,000 different things that I do with my Clover mini iron. The first and most important being doing the foundation piecing. So those are the two that I'm going to use now. So this is the acorn glue. I'm going to remove the little top. I'm going to place on number 2. So I'm going to do 3 little dots of glue right here and place my piece. Actually, maybe I will turn the light back on so you can see where I need to cover. I need to cover this section here. Looking through the fabric, the paper, I can see where I need to cover. So I'm going to put it right there. Depending on how many I'm doing, I might take my little mini iron and dry it. If I'm doing quite a few of these, you don't need to. It'll be dry enough. So put 3 dots. Place this so that I know it's going to cover. So for instance, this is the 2-piece. It goes from here all the way to here plus the seam allowance. Make sure that your fabric is centered. So from here to here, my fabric is centered and placed and secured with that glue. The glue is really wonderful because it does dry quite quickly, but yet it comes right off. So I've had students ask me, can I use my Roxanne's basting glue? The Roxanne's doesn't work for this as well, and it really comes down to the drying time. The Roxanne's, even with the iron, seems to take longer to dry, and I kind of was waiting because I tested it, of course. I mean, somebody's going to ask me about it. I'm going to find out if it'll work. Would it work? Yeah. As well as this? No, this actually works better. But like I mentioned, you don't even have to use it. You can do it without. So I've got 4 of these all stacked up. They're not completely dry. This glue is really, really handy when you're going to stack up 8 or 10 of them, because then by the time you get to the first one, it's completely dry. So here I have those. Now I'm going to go to my sewing machine. So at my sewing machine, I have my machine set up with the open toe applique foot. That means there is nothing in front of where the needle is going to come down. That is going to be the most efficient use of your eyes because you can see it. Without the open toe foot, you can be really struggling to see where the line is. I also have set my stitch length up a little bit smaller. So I'm on a 2.0 on my machine. All right. This is the line that I'm going to sew right here. I'm going to start off the design way off here. Okay. And you're going to do that anytime that your design line comes to the end of the design. Now here, the line stops right here at where the 4 is going to go. So I'm going to get to there and stop. Lift my presser foot and pull it through. Going to pull it through so I can chain piece the next one on. So I'm going to start right here, start off the edge, and continue to sew, get to the end, lift, add my next piece, just pull it out, and then your next one will be ready. Just staying on the line. And the last one for this. There. Now, if I had a thread cutter on this machine, I would use it right now, but I do not. This machine doesn't have it, so I'm going to take my scissors, pull it out, take my scissors, and cut the threads, and then we'll go back to the table. All right. So there I have 4 all lined up. All right. Now I need to cut the threads apart, and I'm an advocate of keeping all the threads contained. I mean, technically, could I cut it off and have those threads hanging there? Yeah, technically. It might drive me a little bit crazy, and it's such a short road. I don't know that I want to test that theory. Okay, over here. This one. There, and this one is the starting tail. All right, so that's my first piece pieced. Now I'm going to press it. So I'm going to take my fabric, flip it over, and this is where the Clover mini iron comes in. You're going to press it, zoom, zoom, zoom. That's all. All right. Now keep in mind, this is the original Clover mini iron. I'm going to be on high for this. If you've got the new one that has the red guard on it, only set it to medium. It gets too hot. Now you might be also wondering, how is it that I can press while I'm on a cutting mat? Any cutting mat, you can do this. As long as what you're doing is zoom, zoom, zoom. If you take it here and lay it down on top of the mat, yeah, it's going to destroy your mat. Don't do that. But if all you're doing is that quick pressing, that's all you have to do. And I do normally, we can't see it right now, but I do store my little mini iron in a large mug so that I'm not burning things. It's hard for me to do that during recordings, but in real life, I'm going to store the iron in a mug. All right, so now we're ready to place our third piece. So flipping it over, I don't have to do a trimming here. I already did it. So we're just going to leave that just like it is. And I'm going to take my number 3 piece and I'm going to put my glue down. Bop, bop, ooh, bubbles, bop. Put that down. So again, it is centered on the piece. Flip that over. Oops, fabric side, please. Dot, dot, dot. There. Right. Now, this is how this entire process is going to continue. I might come back and show you some of the more difficult piecings. I think I will. Some of these longer pieces are just a little bit trickier. So for instance, this long one, some of these. So I'm going to continue gluing and sewing until I get to that part, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do some of those trickier connections. I have a few of the other pieces put on, and so now I want to show you just kind of how it happens when you get to the long skinny pieces. So this will be for this long red skinny piece, right? So going to make the cut because I've got all this jagged edge. So going to take and using my add an eighth, going to do the fold on the line. Oops, got a little bit of glue there. Flip it and cut. And then one more. I cut the other two already off camera. All right, so now we're ready to place the red piece. So this is the number 4 section. So I need to turn my light back on so you can see through it. Which changes kind of how you see everything else. So here you can see where the red goes, right? So this is the tip of it. Keeping in mind too that that tip goes all the way to here, so you can only see it. You can't see it underneath the seam allowance, I guess is what I'm saying. And then all the way up to here, to the very top of the piece. So I'm going to put my glue down, and I'm not going to worry about the yellow section over here. It doesn't actually reach that far down. Put this right sides, and I'm making sure that it goes all the way from the end. So with the measurements that I've given you, I've made it so that you can place it here a little bit past the end and go all the way down, because it can be confusing. Do you take it all the way down here or all the way up here? In this case, you're going to take it from the outside edge of the piece on down. So let me glue the other ones, and then we'll do a quick sew. Beep, beep, beep. I love this red. It's actually a lot of people are struggling with picking their fabrics. It seems to be a constant struggle with a lot of people to pick their fabrics. And this particular red, oh, it's a Christmas red. I've had it for quite some time. It's got a little bit of gold on it. I just think it's really cool. And just because it's a Christmas red from a Christmas collection certainly doesn't mean that I can't use it on a patriotic quilt, right? Red is red, if it's the right red, which is why when I'm storing my fabrics, I don't store them by, here's my Christmas fabrics, here's my batik fabrics. I store them by color. So these are my red fabrics. I needed a red, reach in there, and just so happens the red that I chose, whoops, was from a Christmas collection. All right, get down there, little guy. Make sure I've got him on the top and the bottom. Yep. When I was doing some of these off camera, I was doing like 8 of them. And when you're doing that many and you apply the glue, it really sticks before you have to do any of this ironing to it. So I only have to do this because I'm not letting it set, because I don't want to make you watch it all. All right, so now back to the machine. So at the machine, when I'm doing these, I like to start at the inside of the design. So I'm going to start here and go all the way off the edge. I've got my smaller stitch length, as you'll recall. Oops, press your foot down. The smaller stitch length. So on my FAF machine here, I'm down to a 2.0. That's going to make the seams be a little bit more secure and make it a little easier to take off the paper. So now I'm going to pull this back, come to the middle of the piece again, starting right at the intersection line, and sew all the way off the edge of the paper. It's very, very important that you sew all the way off the edge of the paper. I'll see students they'll get here to the end here, and they think they have to stop here at the point of the red. No, go all the way through the end. That is going to make it possible for the piece to be held together. If you don't do that, that little seam edge is flopsy. That's an official quilting term, in case you were wondering, flopsy. All right. So back with my pieces. I think actually I can turn off the light now. Whoops. Turn off light. There. Okay. So now you can see a little clearer. I'm going to take and, well, I'm going to search and search and search, and maybe I'll find my scissors. There they are. Oh, my goodness. Need to have one of those find me things like my phone has. All right. So here's the general idea. Flipping it over, getting all of the threads off. But from here, I'm going to press this again. Clover mini iron, zoom, zoom, zoom. And I'm not going to do them all right now, but let me show you where this next one, this one right here, would be next. So I'm going to take and trim that. And I'll be trimming off a couple of different little fabric pieces on that. And then I'll be placing my piece. So I've only got 2 more pieces to go on here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish up this block. I'm going to finish these 4 that I would consider the center diamonds, or no, center triangles. That's what they're called. And then the corner triangles. Going to get that all done. And the next time we get together, I'll show you what's next, preparing the piece and creating the block. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you've already subscribed to the channel. Consider being a member of the channel, or just thanking me for putting on these videos. I hope you enjoy them, and I will see you next time.